I shouldn't be telling you this. Not here, not in the dark. Not when you're about to close your eyes and drift into sleep. But maybe that's the only time you'll really understand what I'm trying to say. Because there are things I've seen, things I've heard in my office, sitting across from patients that won't leave me alone. One of them is him. We call him Mr. Grin. At least, that's the name patients whisper. They don't say it loudly. They never smile when they talk about him. No, they tremble, like even the sound of it makes something shift in the room around them. And I thought it was just another shared delusion, a trick of fragile minds, until it WASN single quotes. The first time I realized something was wrong, truly wrong, was when two patients with different lives, different towns, no chance of knowing each other described him the exact same way. Tall, they said, always in the corner, always watching. His smile is too wide, too sharp. Now I can't shake the thought that maybe Mr. Grin isn't just a story. Maybe he isn't just an echo inside broken minds. Because lately, when my office lights flicker at night, I swear I see him too. And if I'm right, if Mr. Grin is real, then you need to know the rules. Because if you ever catch a glimpse of him, if you ever feel the weight of his grin pressing in the dark, there's only one thing you can do, and I'll tell you, but not yet. I haven't told anyone this before. Not my colleagues, not my supervisor, not even the few people in my life I'd consider friends. You'd think being a therapist means I'm good at opening up, but the truth is, I've always been better at listening than talking. That's why I'm telling you. Because you can't interrupt me. You won't look at me like I've lost my mind. You'll just listen. And that's all I need right now, someone to carry this weight for a while. Because it's getting heavier every day. I just need someone to listen. You don't need to believe me, though I think by the time I'm finished, you might not have a choice. It's not an easy story, not one that leaves you with answers or comfort. It's the kind of story that leaves you checking the corners of your room before you turn out the lights. But that's the reality of what I've seen, of what I know now. It started in the quiet hours of my office, but it followed me home. And once you hear it, maybe it will follow you too. Promise me you won't try to find it. That's the one thing I need from you. I know curiosity has a way of digging under your skin, especially with stories like this, where the line between real and imagined blurs. But I need you to resist it. If you ever find yourself in an old cabin in the woods, the kind with no signal, and silence so thick it feels like a blanket pressing over your mouth, don't stay. Don't linger. Don't listen for the noises that don't belong. Because once you hear them, once you recognize them, it's already too late. I should explain how this began. Most of my days aren't glamorous, despite what television makes people think about therapy. It isn't all dramatic breakthroughs and sudden tears. It's quiet, measured, often repetitive. A lot of listening, a lot of patience, waiting for the pieces to form a shape that makes sense. I sit in a small office with cream walls and a clock that ticks too loudly when the air conditioner shuts off. I've seen people from all walks of life, burnt-out parents, anxious college kids, veterans who can't sleep, addicts trying to stay clean. And for a long time, I thought that was the extent of my work, helping people carry their invisible burdens, holding their pain until it weighed just a little less. But about 6 months ago, the pattern changed. At first I didn't notice it. That's how these things creep in, quietly, almost politely, as if asking permission. A patient, one I won't name for obvious reasons, came in with complaints of sleepless nights. Nothing unusual about that. Insomnia is one of the most common issues I treat, but the way he described it, it stuck with me. He said it wasn't just sleeplessness. He said it felt like he wasn't alone in his own house. Like something was in the corners, watching him, smiling. He mentioned a presence that came when the clock struck 3 in the morning. The kind of detail that makes the hairs rise on your arms because it feels too precise, too rehearsed. I wrote it off as paranoia, the kind that blossoms in the dark when your body is tired but your mind refuses to rest. But then, 2 weeks later, Another patient described the same thing. Not word for word, but close enough to make me feel uneasy. She said she'd been staying in her family's cabin in the woods. No phone signal, no neighbors, just endless rows of trees swallowing the sky. She said she woke in the middle of the night to a sound breathing, but not hers. She told me she thought it was the wind at first, until she realized the breathing matched hers, in and out, as though something was laying right beside her, hidden in the dark. And then she said the thing I still can't get out of my head. I didn't see him, but I know he was grinning. Two patients, no connection, telling me the same kind of story. Do you know how rare that is? The human imagination is vast, scattered, unpredictable. It doesn't line up neatly like that, not unless there's a common source. I considered the possibility that they'd stumbled across the same internet forum or scary story blog. Urban legends spread fast these days, especially online, but when I asked them, gently, probing without revealing what I already suspected, they both looked at me with confusion. Neither of them used forums. Neither of them had read much of anything lately. Their stories were raw, unpolished, lacking the kind of dramatic flair you'd expect from someone who picked up a ghost story, secondhand. I kept their files open longer than I should have, rereading the session notes in the dim light of my desk lamp. The words blurred together after a while, but one detail kept standing out. The grin. Always the grin. Too wide, too sharp, too wrong. I began to wonder if it was more than coincidence. Maybe it was a local story I hadn't heard. Or maybe, just maybe, it was something else entirely. Something real. The nights grew harder after that. I found myself listening for sounds in my own apartment. For the subtle shift of weight in the air. For breathing that wasn't mine. It's embarrassing, in a way. A therapist spooked by shadows. I'd laugh at myself, shake my head, and remind myself that stress plays tricks. But sometimes, when the streetlights flickered outside my window, I thought I saw him. Not clearly, never in focus. Just the faint suggestion of something tall, leaning in the corner of the room. And that smile. That impossible smile. You seem like someone who's seen strange things too. That's why I think you'll understand. That's why I need to tell you this, all of it, before it becomes too much for me to carry alone. Because, if I keep it inside any longer, if I keep pretending it's nothing more than coincidence, I think I'll lose whatever grip I have left on what's real and what isn't. And if that happens, I'm afraid he'll win, so stay with me. Listen carefully. I'll explain what I've learned, and the rules I discovered too late. But before I do, I need you to promise me one more thing. When the night is silent, when you wake up to find the air pressing too heavy on your chest, don't go looking for the source. Don't listen for the breathing. Don't watch for the grin. Because if you do, he'll know you've noticed him. And once he knows, there's no turning back. When I think back to when all of this began to feel real, when the stories stopped being words in a notebook and started to become something I could almost touch. It wasn't in my office. It was in that cabin. I should explain. Therapists don't have perfect lives. Sometimes we're more broken than the people we try to help. I'd been carrying too many sleepless nights, too many words I couldn't shake off after sessions. You ever feel like you're made of glass, and the smallest sound might crack you down the middle? That was me. So when a colleague suggested I get out of the city for a while, somewhere quiet, I listened. I booked a few nights in an old cabin, tucked deep in the woods, hours from anything. No neighbors, no cell service, just silence. Exactly what I thought I needed. The drive itself felt wrong, though I couldn't tell you why at the time. The road wound tighter the further I went. Pine trees leaning overhead, until the sky itself seemed swallowed by green. My GPS lost signal 20 miles before I arrived, and the last stretch of road was little more than dirt and stone. When I finally pulled up, the cabin looked older than the pictures online had shown. The wood was gray, weather-beaten, and the porch sagged in the middle, as though it had been holding its breath for decades. Still, it was standing. a roof and 4 walls. That was enough. Inside, it smelled of cedar and dust, the kind of stale quiet that makes you wonder if the house itself has been sleeping and resents being woken. The furniture was simple: a wooden table, 2 chairs, a sofa that creaked if you touched it. There was a fireplace, but I didn't bother with it. I wasn't planning to stay long enough to use it. The bedroom upstairs had 1 window facing the trees, and when I looked out, the woods seemed endless, stretching on forever in every direction. That should have been comforting, but it wasn't. It felt less like privacy and more like being watched. That first night, nothing happened. Not really. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I started to drift, I'd jolt awake to the sound of silence. You don't realize how loud cities are until you leave them. Out there, no hum of traffic, no sirens, no neighbors moving around in the apartment above. Just the house and the trees and the dark. I thought the quiet would be soothing. Instead, it pressed against me, thick and suffocating, like being buried under snow. The second night was worse. Around midnight, the clock on the wall in the kitchen stopped. Just stopped. The second hand froze between ticks. I checked at my watch, still moving fine. My phone, useless without service, showed the time passing normally, but that kitchen clock refused to budge. I laughed it off, told myself it was a dead battery, but when I walked past it again at 3 in the morning, it had moved only a few minutes forward, as though it had been dragging itself reluctantly through the hours. That was when I heard it, a creak upstairs, the unmistakable groan of a floorboard giving underweight. I froze in the kitchen, every nerve in my body straining to listen. Nothing followed, just silence, thick and complete. I waited until my lungs burned from holding my breath, then forced a shaky laugh. Old houses creak, I told myself. Wood swells, nails shift, nothing more. Still, I didn't go upstairs that night. I sat on the sofa until dawn bled pale light through the windows, watching shadows stretch too far across the floor. The third day, I went for a walk, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. The woods were dense, paths half hidden under leaves. I noticed, after about half an hour, that no birds were singing. Not one. Not even the distant flutter of wings. I've never realized how unsettling the absence of birdsong can be until that moment. It was as though the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting for something. When a branch cracked behind me, sharp as a gunshot, I spun around, heart hammering. No one was there, just trees, just the still, waiting silence. That night, when I washed my face in the upstairs bathroom, I made the mistake of glancing in the mirror. My reflection was there, tired eyes hollowed from sleeplessness. But behind me, just for a second, I thought I saw something. A figure, tall, leaning just enough that its head brushed the corner of the ceiling, and that smile, crooked, impossible, flashed in the glass. I spun around. Nothing, just the empty bathroom. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection didn't look scary. It looked like it was smiling. Too wide, too sharp. I told myself it was fatigue, that I was seeing what my patients had planted in my mind. It's easy for fear to spread that way, contagious like a yawn. But that didn't explain what happened on the 4th night. I woke to a sound, breathing, not mine, heavy, deliberate, in the dark room. I didn't move, didn't dare. My chest rose and fell, shallow, trying to keep pace without giving myself away. The sound was right beside me, a fraction off from my rhythm. Inhale, exhale, slow, patient, smiling. I could feel it, the way you can feel someone standing behind you, even when you refuse to turn around. And in that moment, with every ounce of dread pressing into me, I knew I wasn't alone. When I finally found the courage to flick on the bedside lamp, the room was empty. My reflection in the window stared back at me, wide-eyed, trembling, but for half a heartbeat. I swear its lips curled into a grin before mine did. That was when I understood why my patients had spoken the way they did. Why do they whisper his name? Why did they seem so desperate to have someone believe them? Because once you see him, once you feel him, there's no going back. He isn't just in their minds. He isn't just a story. He's here, woven into silence, hiding in the reflection, waiting for the lights to flicker just long enough for you to notice. And I think he noticed me too. By the fifth night, I realized the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. I woke to a sound I couldn't place at first. 3 knocks. Soft, deliberate. I lay there in the dark, ears straining, certain it was just my mind tricking me. Then it came again. 3 slow raps, steady as a heartbeat. Knock, knock, knock. The kind of sound that feels less like someone asking to be let in, and more like someone reminding you they already know where you are. I forced myself out of bed, legs trembling, and crept down the stairs. The cabin was darker than it had ever been. Not the kind of dark you get when you turn off the lights, but the kind that eats what little light is left. I flicked the switch in the kitchen. The bulb buzzed, dimmed, and died. My breath fogged in the air though the night wasn't cold. And then I saw it, the front door. The lock I'd fastened the night before was hanging loose. The door was cracked open, not wide, just enough for the night air to bleed through. I closed it, turned the bolt, told myself it must have been my mistake, but I knew I hadn't left it like that. I remember checking it twice. I remember standing there in the doorway before bed, staring out at the line of trees, feeling like eyes were staring back. That's why I'd locked it, double-checked it, because something in me already knew. The knocking stopped after that, but the silence didn't. It pressed thicker, tighter. I climbed the stairs, climbed into bed, and waited for morning like a prisoner waiting for release. But sleep never came, not really. When I did drift, it didn't rest. It was whispers. A voice thin and stretched like it had been pulled through wires, speaking just above my ear. My name, over and over. The first time I thought it was the wind. The second time a dream. But by the third, when the voice began to describe things I'd done earlier that day, the book I'd read, the way I'd left the mug in the sink, I realized it wasn't a dream at all. It was watching me even when my eyes were closed. The mornings didn't offer comfort. I'd wake groggy, heavy, like I hadn't slept at all, and find things out of place. The chair at the kitchen table angled differently. The curtain in the bedroom pulled back, though I hadn't touched it. The bathroom mirror smeared faintly with condensation, though I hadn't run water hot enough to fog it. One morning, I came downstairs to find the sofa shoved a foot away from the wall, angled toward the fireplace, as though someone had sat there in the night, waiting, watching the stairs. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was too tired to trust my own memory. But deep down, I knew the truth. Houses don't move furniture on their own. Houses don't whisper your name, and shadows don't smile unless something's wearing them. The 7th night broke me. It started with the knocking again. Knock, knock, knock. I sat upright in bed, heart pounding, and waited. It came from the window this time, sharp against the glass. I didn't move. Couldn't. Then it shifted. A new sound. The door downstairs groaned. A slow, aching creak, as though hinges were being forced open. I'd locked it. I was sure I had. But locks don't matter to things that don't need them. I crept down the stairs with a flashlight clutched in my hand like it could protect me. Every shadow leaned too far, bent at angles that didn't belong to the furniture that cast them. I reached the bottom step and froze. The door stood wide open, not swinging, not moving, just open, like a mouth waiting to swallow me. My flashlight flickered. For a heartbeat, I saw him, at the tree line. Tall, still, the grin impossibly wide, teeth that didn't belong in any human mouth. He didn't move. I didn't need to. The sight alone pinned me where I stood, my lungs refusing to work, my body refusing to run. Then the light sputtered out, and the porch was empty. I slammed the door, bolted it, pressed my back to the wood until my muscles ached. I stayed there the rest of the night, listening as the whispers circled the cabin. Sometimes outside, sometimes upstairs, sometimes just behind me. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grin, frozen, waiting by the 8th night. I started talking to myself. That's how you know you're unraveling. When silence feels so unbearable, you'll fill it with anything. Even your own broken voice. I muttered, nonsense. I hummed. I prayed. But the silence swallowed everything. And when I stopped, when my throat went dry, the cabin answered. A whisper not my own, repeating my words back to me. Warped, delayed, as though the walls themselves had learned my voice. That night, the dreams bled into waking. I felt hands on me, pressing me down into the mattress. Though when I opened my eyes, there was nothing. Just the indentation of weight beside me, the sheets pulling tight as though someone was laying there, grinning in the dark. I didn't dare turn my head. I didn't dare look. I lay still until dawn, when the weight finally lifted. By then, I'd stopped pretending. This wasn't stressful. This wasn't my imagination. It was him, Mr. Grin. He'd followed me here, or maybe he'd been here all along, waiting for someone foolish enough to come alone. I remembered my patients' trembling voices, their warnings. I remembered the way their eyes darted 2 corners of the room, how their shoulders hunched like they were bracing against something I couldn't see. I hadn't believed them. Not really. But I believe them now, because I've seen what happens when you ignore the rules. And the rules aren't about keeping him out. They're about keeping him satisfied. By the 9th night, I stopped pretending I'd get any rest at all. I sat awake in the living room with every light on, clutching a lukewarm mug of coffee, as if caffeine could keep me safe. The cabin felt smaller than ever, the walls leaning in, the air too heavy. I told myself I'd leave in the morning, pack the car, drive until the road widened and the trees thinned. But dawn came gray and cold, and still I stayed. Maybe I was too afraid of what I'd see if I opened the door. Maybe I knew it wouldn't matter. That morning, something strange happened. I dropped the mug, and it slipped from my shaking hand and shattered against the wooden floorboards. I cursed under my breath, bent to pick up the shards, and that's when I noticed it. A seam in the floor I hadn't seen before. A plank loose at the edge of the rug. My hands trembled as I pried it up, splinters digging into my skin, until the board came free with a groan that echoed through the cabin. Beneath was a narrow cavity, dark, filled with dust, and inside, a book. It wasn't really a book anymore. The leather was cracked, curling, the pages warped with age, but it was still legible. A journal. My stomach knotted as I opened it, fingers blackened by years of dirt. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, but desperate. The first entry I read was dated 1957. They told me not to stay past the 3rd night. I didn't listen. I thought the silence would be good for me. I was wrong. He comes when the house is quiet. He waits in the corners. He grins when the lamps burn out. I think he feeds on the hours I should be sleeping. I think he grows stronger when I don't leave. I flipped further, my pulse thundering. Entry after entry described the same things I'd been experiencing. The knocking, the doors, the whispers in the dark. Always escalating, always worse after the 3rd night. The final entry chilled me more than any shadow could. If you are reading this, leave now. Don't pack. Don't look back. If you hear him whisper your name, it's too late. You've already been marked. He doesn't live in the cabin. The cabin lives in him. I slammed the journal shut, chest heaving. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped it. Whoever had written this, they'd known. They'd lived through it, or tried to. And their warning had been buried beneath the floorboards, hidden like a grave. I tried to convince myself it was some cruel story, a trick to scare trespassers, but that thought didn't last. Because when I went upstairs later, intending to pack my bag and leave, I noticed something carved into the wall by the window. At first I thought it was scratches, the kind left by furniture dragged too close. But when I looked closer, I realized they were words. Deep, desperate gouges into the wood, overlapping, frantic. "Don't look at the smile." I stumbled back, heart racing. My reflection in the glass shivered with me, pale and hollow-eyed, but for the briefest moment, it didn't look afraid. It looked amused. Its lips curled in a grin I couldn't feel on my own face. That night, I tried to run. I made it as far as the porch before the woods swallowed me. Every tree looked the same, every path looping back into itself. My flashlight beam shook, cutting through the dark only to reveal more dark. And all the while, the silence followed. No crickets, no wind, just the faint sound of footsteps behind me, too perfectly matched to my own. When I stumbled back to the cabin, gasping, defeated, the front door was already open. Inside, the lights flickered, buzzing like flies, and then I saw it. Not in the corner, not in the reflection, but standing in the middle of the living room, tall and skeletal, a grin carved too wide across its face. My body locked, every instinct screaming to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. The air itself pressed me down, thick and crushing, and all I could do was stare. The journal's warning echoed in my skull. Don't look at the smile. Don't look. But how could I not? It was the only thing in the room, the only thing in the world. That grin stretched impossibly, tearing the shadows open, showing teeth that didn't belong to any human. My eyes burned, watered, but I couldn't close them. The harder I tried, the wider his grin grew, until I thought it would split the cabin apart. And then, as suddenly as it came, the lights went out. Total darkness. My breath caught, heart hammering. When the lights flickered back on, he was gone. Just the empty room, just the journal on the floor where I'd dropped it. Open to that final warning. He doesn't live in the cabin. The cabin lives in him. For the first time, I understood. The cabin wasn't just a place. It was a trap, a lure for anyone desperate enough, lonely enough, foolish enough to think silence meant safety. He didn't haunt the house. The house was a mouth, and we were the ones who walked willingly between its teeth. I thought I could leave. I thought I could still get out. But the woods had no end, and the door never stayed shut. And worst of all, I knew the truth now. The patients who had whispered his name weren't imagining him. They'd been inside his mouth, just like me. And maybe they still were, because once you've seen the grin, you never really leave. I tried to leave again the next morning. My hands shook as I threw things into a bag. Clothes, my wallet, the journal I swore I'd burn the moment I found a match. I didn't care about anything else. The silence pressed in too close, and I knew if I stayed another night, I wouldn't leave at all. The car coughed, then sputtered to life. Relief nearly knocked the breath out of me. I backed out of the gravel driveway so fast, the tires spit rocks like teeth. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought I'd beaten him. But the road didn't end. I drove 4 hours, I think. The forest never changed. Pine after pine, curve after curve, the same rotten mile repeating. The clock on the dashboard flickered, then froze. My phone, though long dead, vibrated once in my pocket. When I pulled it out, the screen lit up just enough to show a notification. No signal, no time, just a single word, smile. I almost crashed then. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles went white, whispering to myself, "It's not real, it's not real." But the longer I drove, the more the trees seemed to lean toward the road, their trunks like ribs, their shadows like a throat I was sliding deeper into. Eventually, the road spat me back at the cabin. Same gravel drive, same porch, the same front door cracked open as if it had been waiting. I laughed. Not a sane laugh, sharp, breathless, hysterical, because I knew then there was no way out. You don't drive away from him. You circle inside him. That night, I didn't bother with the lights. I didn't bother with coffee. I sat in the living room with the journal open on my lap, reading the words of whoever came before me. Their handwriting shook more and more with each entry, until the ink smudged into something unreadable, like a hand trembling too violently to finish the warning. I thought about my patients, the ones who whispered about him, about the boy who said he saw teeth in the corners of his room, about the woman who swore she couldn't look in mirrors anymore. I had thought they were sick, that I could fix them, but maybe they were simply farther along the path I was walking now. And maybe that's why I'm telling you this. Maybe I need you to understand before the grin finds you too. The cabin creaked, slowly, deliberately, like the stretch of a smile across wood. The shadows bent toward me. My reflection in the black window pane leaned forward, lips pulling back in a grin that didn't belong to me. And I felt it then. Not fear, not resistance, just a kind of surrender. I think that's what he wants. Not your body, not even your mind. Just the moment you give up, the moment you let yourself be held inside the smile. He feeds on it, he grows with it, and when you're hollow enough, he wears you. He'll wear me. I don't think I'll leave this place. Not because I can't, but because I don't want to anymore. The journal warned me not to look, but I looked, I stared, and the grin stared back. So if you hear my voice again, somewhere else, in another story, another whisper at the edge of sleep, don't listen too closely. It won't be me speaking. It'll be him, wearing my words, grinning through my mouth. And if you ever find yourself in a cabin in the woods, where the clocks stop, where the birds fall silent, where every shadow seems to lean too far toward you, please, for your own sake, don't stay past the third night. Because once you've seen the grin, you never look away. I haven't been able to sleep since, not in the way that matters anyway. My eyes close, sure, my body still goes, but it never rests. It's waiting. Every night feels like a coin toss. Will it be another dream, another grin in the corner of the room, another laugh slipping in under my door? Or will it just be silence, stretched so thin it sounds like it's screaming? I'm telling you this because you seem like the kind of person who might listen, the kind of person who might understand. Maybe you've felt it too, that presence in the dark, the sense that something unseen is bending closer. Maybe you've heard the noises when no one else does, the clicks, the whispers, the faint dragging sounds. I used to write it off as stress, as paranoia, the kind of thing sleepless nights do to a mind already frayed. But I can't write it off anymore. I've seen the grin. I've heard my own voice answering questions I never asked, words spilling from my mouth that didn't belong to me. I know you're wondering why I don't just leave. Why don't I torch the cabin, burn the journal, throw it all into ash, and walk away? Believe me, I've thought about it. But here's the thing. He's not in the cabin. Not really. He's in the pause between heartbeats, in the silence, when your phone dies and there's nothing left to fill the space. He's in the moment. Your reflection lingers a second too long before following your movements. He's everywhere, because once you've seen him, once you've let him in, there's no walking away. I still hear him every night. Sometimes it's laughter. Sometimes it's just breathing, drawn out and patient, like he's savoring the wait. And sometimes it's worse, it's nothing at all. Because nothing means he's closer, right behind me, just out of sight. I think he wants me to keep talking, to spread the story. Maybe it's how he grows. Maybe he feeds on attention, on the fear passed like a torch from one person to another. And I've given in, haven't I? I'm sitting here, whispering this to you, passing the flame into your hands, so listen carefully. If you ever find that cabin in the woods, don't go inside. If you see a journal buried in the floorboards, don't open it. And if you ever feel that tug, that itch in your chest pulling you toward the dark, don't follow. But if you already have, if you've already caught the shadow at the edge of your vision, if you've already woken up to the sound of someone else breathing in your room, when you're alone, then it's too late. And maybe that's why I'm really telling you this. Not as a warning, not as advice, but as a kind of confession. because when you hear the grin for yourself, and you'll remember me. You'll remember this voice, these words, and maybe that'll make it easier when the silence finally bends toward you. I don't know how much longer I'll still be myself. Some days, when I catch my reflection, I already see the change. My lips twitch upward when nothing's funny. My eyes glint with something I don't recognize. My patients used to look at me for answers. Now I avoid mirrors because I'm afraid of what I might say back. So, if this is the last thing I tell you, let it be this. Don't smile back. Whatever you do, don't. Once you return the grin, you're his. Completely. And I think, deep down, you already know what I mean. Because even now, even as you sit there listening to me, your lips are twitching, aren't they? Like mine are. Tell me something. While you're still here, have you ever felt it too? That prickle on the back of your neck when the room is silent. That strange pause where you swear you're not alone, even when logic tells you otherwise. I want to know. I need to know. Because maybe it isn't just me. Maybe he's out there with you, too. So if you've ever heard the knocks, the whispers, the unexplained breathing in the middle of the night, tell me. Leave it below. Every story matters. Every detail is another piece of the puzzle, and I'll be reading. I always read. But listen carefully. Don't share anything you're not ready to face again, because writing it down, speaking it out loud, it's like opening a door. Sometimes that's all it takes for him to slip inside. If you do decide to stay with me through the next story, promise me one thing. Don't listen alone. Don't sit in the dark with your headphones in, pretending the noises you hear are just the house settling, because you and I both know by now that isn't always true. So tell me your story. Share your sleepless nights. And maybe, together, we'll figure out how to keep the grin away just a little longer. Just remember, once you've heard him laugh, you'll never unhear it.